Hello and welcome back to episode 4. This episode, out of everything in the series, I personally believe to be the most important video because it's good to have these ideas, maybe of like happiness or improving or planning, but if you never put them into action, nothing will happen. The point of this video is to give you the courage and really just realize that fear isn't as scary as you think it is. This video is about overcoming that step in order to bring action and see yourself improve over time. And that cannot be done without the greatest teacher, Onizuka Eikichi. Now, this guy is not a good teacher at academics. He's not really good at teaching social studies, but he's good at teaching you life lessons. Life lessons that don't just stick with you after high school, but they continue with you for the rest of your life. And so, I'll start with a question. What does the word great mean to you? Is a great person someone who gets the highest marks in the class, someone with the highest paying job, or someone with a great physique? Now, what if I told you that being great is to never run from fear and make excuses away from it, but to face it head on? To live with no regrets, to be yourself in all situations regardless of who you're with, to not be scared of what you genuinely want because of what other people may think, but to embrace it fully, and to be shamelessly proud of being weird, perverted, delinquent, and most of all, inspiring. Now this great person is actually a teacher. His name, Onizuka Eikichi. And you're probably wondering, hey Josh, did you just say weird, perverted, and delinquent? And yes, I did. And kind of the bulk of this episode is understanding that and highlighting that people who act weird or unlike other people might end up actually happier at the end of their lives than people who just follow what everyone else does. So you're probably wondering now, what is this anime/manga series, Great Teacher Onizuka, or called GTO? Now, there are two ways of looking at it. One, the watered down version, or the other, the real and nitty gritty one. And I'll give you with the former first. GTO, in summary, is about a 22-year-old named Onizuka Eikichi who wants to be a teacher to inspire and help his students to become better not in their studies, but in life. Or GTO is about a 22-year-old pervert/virgin Onizuka Eikichi who barely graduated from a low-rate university and is becoming a teacher just so he can have a lovely teenage wife when he's still old and grey, while also using his own unconventional teaching methods to help the bullying, suicides, and harassments that happen at the school. I think I prefer the second one better. So take this as your final warning. This series is not for people who want to stay the same. The series is also not for people who want to follow the path that everyone else blindly takes in life. This series is for people who are ready to understand that being yourself is being weird, and that is probably the greatest part of being alive. So, you ready? Let's learn more about GTO. Now, before I go relentless on how weird this guy is, I want to remind you that I put this guy on the back of my jersey, I scored like him at school, and I'm making a whole episode about pervert. And it's crazy to see how many people are actually inspired to become a teacher because of this guy, including some at Client High School. And the reason I'm saying all this is to remind you that I have a very good reason for making this episode. And it's probably because only by being weird can you really be yourself. And now onto the main plot of the series. So Onizuka, graduating from a low-rate university, gets put in with one of the worst classes in the entire school, Class 3-4. This class is so infamous because every single homeroom teacher they get happens to retire or mysteriously disappear after only a few months of the job. This is because of the students' utter contempt for every single teacher they get, using psychological warfare to break them down and forcing them to leave the school. I mean, composite photos, blackmail, and hell, even murder. But by the end of the series, Onizuka is able to get all the students in Class 3-4 to start enjoying life again, even the worst of the worst. So how does he do that? Because, as we learn later on in the series, it is because he's weird, perverted, and shameless, but because this encompasses the whole idea of being yourself. Not for one day or 1 week, but forever. Always being yourself. That is how you build trust in other people, is because you're never going to be inconsistent. Onizuka always has your back. He's not going to try to be someone different in front of someone else, and he's always going to be there for you and stand up for his own values. That is true friendship, and that's how he saves his class. So unfortunately, I don't really have time to include clips from the manga or the anime. So I'll link a video by Onizuka in the link description, and it's fine if you watch it now and come back later. I think he really highlights how Onizuka's weaknesses, or what everyone considers weird, is actually one of his biggest strengths and what makes him such a great friend and one of the greatest teachers. And now we're on to the beauty of being yourself. Onizuka, like a lot of people, you would probably consider to be the worst of the worst. He's weird, perverted, shameless, and he's kind of a monkey. But the understanding here is that he's not trying to hide anything just because he's being weird. That's genuinely who he is. He's not trying to be this different person in front of other people. He's always genuinely being himself, even if it means other people look at him weirdly. And if a 22-year-old pervert can do it, I'm pretty sure we can all have the courage to just be ourselves. We are always told to stick to the rules, just like at school, to keep your head down and mind your own business and accepting everything that just comes your way. And it's funny, because in Onizuka's classroom, he does the complete opposite. They go on field trips randomly, and they do random experiments in the classroom. And like Onimaru says in his video, we don't all fit into society's neat little box. And now I'm here to define what I mean by weird parts. And as I'll continue in later during this episode with a contrast between the Vice Principal Uchiyamada and Onizuka, we all have these weird parts of ourselves. What I mean by this is that we have parts of ourselves that we may not reveal to others. Parts of ourselves that we feel like if we reveal, we may be judged, or even worse, we feel like these parts are wrong and that they should be removed. For example, back to that glasses analogy I used in episode 2, when I was wearing those glasses, when taking them off felt weird. It was like I was being judged, and honestly, it was like I was doing something wrong. Part of understanding this is that you can forever hide in fear of this. I could have worn those glasses still to today, but I would always have that fear that if I took them off, that I would be weird or be judged by others. Or you can live with your heart on your sleeve like Onizuka, understanding that this is part of who you are, that all these weird parts are just yourself. And there's nothing wrong with being yourself. Yes, he's perverted, shameless, and arrogant, but it's the weird people like Onizuka who truly enjoy life at the end. Because it's not about satisfying other people or following what everyone else does, it's about satisfying what you want to do. Even if it's exaggerated to a point like Onizuka, which I don't think anyone has kind of the same ideals as he does. The point is to follow your way, to do the things that even you find weird. Because at the end of the day, you're going to look back at your life and you're going to want to know if you genuinely lived it your way. Part of doing this is being weird, because even if you are weird to some people, you'll find the real friends along the way. Friends who will accept you, not friends who will push you back like society. And it's about genuinely and completely being yourself like Onizuka. It's not being afraid of being judged by other people for being yourself. Because in the end of the day, it's doing these weird things, going against what other people say, that is truly one of the great feelings in life. And I remember I used to do this as well, playing it safe with friends, but when you understand that genuinely being yourself is not being afraid of showing other people who you are, it's understanding that it's about attracting the friends you want in life and not the friends that you don't want. Your job in society here is not to satisfy everyone, because that wouldn't be yourself. It's about attracting the friends that will ultimately stick by your side to the very end and making sure you're not friends with the people who will drag you down. And as we talked about before with building trust, how Onizuka is able to solve even the worst students' problems is because he's not trying to be someone he's not. Part of building trust with someone is knowing that they'll always be there for you. They're not going to deviate, and that they're always going to be there by your side. Why Onizuka is such a good role model and so inspirational is that he's not going to be swayed by different people. If it's a president of the United States or just some person downtown, he's still going to be the same. Now, I understand that being yourself in all situations is pretty unrealistic. Like, I wouldn't want to be pulling up to a job interview in full gangster fit like Onizuka, but that's just Onizuka. The point here is that we like being around people who aren't afraid to be themselves. It's why you see me crouching down at school squatting like Onizuka. Sometimes we need the courage to be ourselves, to put away all these other things and just show who we are, because at the end of the day, that's going to bring us the people we want to be with, as well as showing that we aren't afraid of being ourselves. And as we said before in last episode, real friends don't always have to be real. Onizuka taught me so much along the lines of fear and courage. I mean, without him, I definitely would not be sitting here making this video series to you guys. I would definitely not have the balls to talk in front of the camera. And part of understanding now is that it's fine if I just talk to you and give you all this information about Onizuka, but it's actually watching the anime or this manga series that you truly get a deeper understanding. I mean, after all, this is how I learned Onizuka's lessons. I just put them all into a video series for you guys to understand. But it's actually watching the video series, getting to know who Onizuka really is, that is truly, truly beautiful. And reminds you that even if you are kind of weird sometimes, that it's being yourself is the greatest thing you could ever do. And of course, it's about following yourself. It wouldn't be your life if you didn't follow what you genuinely wanted to do. And of course, I think on this occasion, Onizuka is exaggerated to a point where his love for high school girls and miniskirts makes the weird things that we are scared of in life, for example my glasses, seem like pieces of cake. But of course, I would like to stress that yes, Onizuka is quite weird, but he still has very, very good morals. I mean, that's why I've said he's great at teaching life lessons. He cares about honesty, he's big on living with no regrets, and it's all about being yourself. I mean, trying to teach a lesson to one of your students by driving a motorcycle off a bridge definitely might not be the most realistic thing to do nowadays, but it still has a point. This is simply just how Onizuka sees the world. It's how he teaches his lessons, and it's how he connects with his students. By being yourself and doing it his way, yes, it might seem a little weird to us, and definitely certainly for me when I first read it, but I feel like by doing this consistently, as he continues to do with all of his students, it becomes almost like an old-time friend. Because you know he's always got your back, and more importantly, he's always there for you. And now we're into the next section. Are you scared? Like, that's literally what it's called. But anyways, the point I want to get through in this section before I start it with a little preface is that these problems that these students deal with in GTO are definitely still very, very serious. As much as Onizuka is kind of a weird and funny person, these problems that students deal with can range from sexual assault, suicide, and bullying. These aren't really funny, but the thing is, Onizuka is able to help all these students despite their problems because he's able to be himself. Because they can build trust in him, because he's always, he's never going to give up on you, and he's never going to let his values get stopped by other people. That is what makes Onizuka so special. Students can connect with him, and I feel like audiences around the world can connect with him, is that you don't have to be this perfect person to enjoy life. Onizuka shows that you could just be this hilarious dumbass who likes to do stupid things and still be able to live your life, as long as you're just being yourself. It's pretty wonderful and it's pretty crazy to see that because nothing else on the media nowadays really shows that. And it's honestly so cool just to go back and see GTO because man is he inspiring. And now we're on to how facing your fears is a trade-off. Now this is directly from GTO, but at some point in the series, Onizuka is testing one of his students, Kunio Mirai, to bungee jump off a bridge so Onizuka can stop hitting on his single mom. Now, of course, this is a test that Onizuka is putting on one of his students to see how far he'll go for his parents. As part of understanding fear, you can say that it is like a trade-off. You lose something in order to gain something you get in the future. I think what is the biggest problem with fear nowadays is that fear doesn't leave you until you do. No amount of complaining, no amount of doing extra stuff, and no amount of vacations is gonna get rid of fear until you actually face it. Fear doesn't leave you until you do. Just like as we go back to the Mirai bridge analogy, the problem is you can sit there complaining by the bridge, but you're gonna have to jump anyways. So isn't it better to do it now than having to regret it later? But some people never jump. They just sit there complaining about the things they were given, and the fear sits there forever. The problem is, fear never leaves you, of course, until you do, so it's better to face it now than doing it later. And when you look at it clearly, sometimes it's actually a lot easier than you think it is. We like to over-exaggerate or overhype the bad events that happen in life. For example, you could spill something in like a science lab or something, and I remember one of my friends just saying, "Oh wow, you're cooked," we like to scare ourselves into doing things. And part of the reason of overcoming fear is realizing, as we talk about more in episode 5, is to look at the more rational side of things rather than the emotional. Sometimes things aren't really as bad as you feel they are, because it's just looking at it rationally that it really isn't that bad. Such as asking the teacher a question is really just starting to speak, and boom, that's it. So before you go and complain about how scary life is, maybe take a second to just think about it, and maybe when you realize that you're gonna have to jump anyways, it's better to do it sooner than later. And now on to the next section, which is giving us the courage to live. Now, Onizuka is inspiring. Yes, he has very simple pleasures, but what makes him so inspiring is that just because he has those simple pleasures doesn't stop him from committing to what he genuinely believes in. For example, saving his students from the Yakuza, or doing crazy stunts to save a suicidal student. These things he genuinely cares about, and it's in doing these things that you realize that as long as it's doing what you genuinely want to, there really is nothing wrong with what you're doing. Because it's these things he does, that going out of his way to help students, going out of his way to help people, that define him as a person. It's what makes him so inspiring, because you don't really need to be perfect at all, if anything, the opposite, to live life genuinely as you want to. And I feel like in doing this, Onizuka inspires us all to not only face our fears, but to genuinely be ourselves. And that's why being yourself is being weird. How can you be yourself if you just follow what everyone else does? If you just follow what everyone deems to be perfect, and if you do everything right? The point is, being yourself is having the balls to do what you genuinely want to. Maybe that's taking off your glasses like me. Definitely, maybe not high school girls. That's just probably Onizuka. But as I keep on talking, the point here is that being yourself is having the balls to go and find what you want. Not everyone is going to like it, and that's kind of the point. You're going to make friends and you're going to lose some. But the friends you make are the people who stay with you forever, like Onizuka. They're genuine friends that are always with you. Remember, if you're trying to make everyone happy, you're not being yourself. And if you're not being yourself, then you're probably not going to be genuinely happy. So, what does a pervert, delinquent, and borderline criminal have to teach you about life? Well, if there's one thing you need to know, is that we all have a little Onizuka inside of us. Okay, maybe not the weird one, but we all have a little Onizuka inside all of us. One that wants to live life their way. One that just wants to be themselves without being judged, without being afraid, and living without fear. However, we know we can't do this. People will judge us, people will hate on us, but some people will accept us. Some people will be our friends, and some people will be there whenever we need them. These are the real friends that we will have in life, and really only done when we realize that this little Onizuka inside of all of us is truly something special. We need to celebrate our weirdness, because just because other people judge it, some people will accept it. And even if everyone hates on us, well, if you genuinely believe in it and if it's genuinely yours, there's nothing wrong with being yourself in the first place. Because if a 22-year-old pervert can do it, I'm pretty sure we all can. And now we're on to one of the final sections of this episode, which is the comparison between Vice Principal Uchiyamada and teacher Onizuka Eikichi. Now, to kind of give you a little backstory, Mr. Uchiyamada has grown up quite as a normal person, but he's kind of had this idea of this perfect life, and that in order to maintain the school's status, he needs to get rid of people like Onizuka who go crazy and do weird stuff in the classroom. Now, and moreover, Uchiyamada aims on the more materialistic side, and that is a very big problem, because in order to try and satisfy his family, instead of actually showing love to them and caring for them, he instead buys a car so they can all go on a family vacation. Rather than following himself, he's following what everyone else does. He's following what society deems as acceptable, instead of being himself and being genuine. And that you can kind of see that because his family is quite distant from him. In trying to be someone he's not and not being genuine, you can't really create trustful relationships, and not only in a family, but also with friends. And to top it all off, you might think these guys are polar opposites, and in a sense you would be mostly correct. But if you take a closer look at it, Uchiyamada aims for this perfect school institution, where trash and delinquents like Onizuka are completely removed, so all the students study and all the teachers teach. But when you take a closer look at Uchiyamada's personal life, you'll find that he enjoys the same simple pleasures that Onizuka does, which I don't think I have to explain. And although it might not seem very important, it's actually quite a big reason why I made this episode. And I think this is one of the greatest comparisons you can make. On one hand, you have Onizuka, who's laying it out all bare. He doesn't care what you think as long as he's genuinely being himself. On the other hand, you have Uchiyamada. Uchiyamada enjoys the same pleasures as Onizuka, but at school or at home, he rebukes them and acts like this completely different person than who he genuinely is. He genuinely likes these simple pleasures, but in an effort to try and fit in with everyone else, he acts like he's on top of them and that he doesn't do them. And I feel like it's people like Uchiyamada that I used to relate to. Back in primary school, I used to be this completely different person, where at school I would try to fit in with everyone else, even if that meant I was starting to hate on things that I genuinely cared about. But I had this idea that, yes, I genuinely like these things, but I was trying to fit in with everyone, so it had to be right. And you kind of see that in Uchiyamada as well, and Onizuka being the polar opposite. The difference between Onizuka and Uchiyamada is that one of them has a smile on their face and is genuinely happy, but the other has a smile on their face but isn't genuinely happy, but in constant fear of being found out. Everyone can smile, but what is hiding under your smile? And now we're on to getting started with GTO. Now, as much as I can yap, there's no way I can yap to you an entire anime series or manga volume. The thing is, you will have to look at it yourself, and that's not like a burden or something. That's the best part, really. That's how I've learned all these lessons. I wasn't really just looking online and I found these things. It's by watching and reading GTO that I was able to learn all these very amazing lessons from the great man himself. Now, there are really three main kind of mediums you can watch it through. I started with the anime, and I will obviously link all of them in the Instagram comment or the YouTube description, or you can DM me if you want them. But there are the three mediums. There's the anime, there's the manga, there is the live action 1998, which is hype. But I started with the anime, and it is dated. It is dated. I rewatched it just like a few. I watched a few episodes just like a week ago. It is quite dated, but I feel like the music and the voice acting and just the overall experience I got from the anime was still pretty good. The manga is still the best, but there's no musical voice acting in the manga. Not that the manga doesn't, you can feel that through the manga, but I feel like with the anime, when you have that music, you can look back on like Driver's High and Hitori no Yoru, which are both intros for GTO, which are absolutely amazing, both of them. When you have music like that to look back on, it really makes life so much better. So I would still recommend the the anime first, and then the manga. And if you're a real collector like me, you can watch a live action TV series, which also has banger music by Takashi Sorimachi. But as always, the manga is the real thing. The anime series is really just a watered down version, as like what we said at the start of this episode between those two intros of GTO. The manga is a little watered down, and it still shows everything, but the manga is like it just goes, it ups the level even higher, and the manga is better than the anime. But I feel like with anime, it's something that you can rewatch anytime, and as well as just having that music and voice acting, which is just iconic, man. And then if you're hyped like me, a TV series, I would recommend either the anime or manga series first, which I'll link both in the description below. But if you, obviously, this doesn't mean that you have to like GTO, right? If you watch the first, I would recommend that if you watch the first episode or first volume, if you read the first volume of GTO and you just really hate it, then definitely be my friend, and you can leave it. It's perfectly fine. But please don't skip any part of the first episode. I still think Onizuka teaches one of his best lessons and most iconic ones in the first one, at the end of the first one. The start of the first one definitely is a little rough. I could understand why people would click away, but please bear with me and watch the whole 50 minutes. It is quite long, but after that it's 25 minutes. But obviously part of understanding Onizuka is getting over his weird things. It's understanding that, yes, this is who he is, but he also genuinely cares about his students and has really good life lessons, which he talks about at the very end of episode 1. But watch the entirety of episode 1. Please don't skip anything, otherwise you'll miss stuff. And with the manga, I mean, just read the first volume, and yeah, if you really hate it after that, the first volume, the first episode, be my guest. If you really just hate it, then that's completely fine. We're all different. But if you don't, then continue reading, man, because there's a whole world out there you're missing out on. And now we're on to the final part of the video. Full throttle, whenever, wherever, along that great road with no finish line. And I'll start with the fact that you don't have to agree with all of GTO. Most of us won't be cigarette smoking delinquents when we grow up because that's genuinely not what we want to do. But the fact that you can still be one and still genuinely live your life is pretty comforting. The point is that we all have different lives, we all have different things we genuinely want to do, but we all have different fears, but they really all require one thing, and that is to take that jump off that bridge. To actually do them, because if you let them sit there, then you'll always have them, kind of like Uchiyamada. We are different, and if you don't really like most of GTO, that's completely fine, of course. I mean, there are some definitely weird parts of GTO, but if you just give it a try and sit down with it and realize that even though you may not want to be like Onizuka, that people like Onizuka, people who are genuinely being themselves, are still people that you want to be friends with. Because Onizuka always has your back. I mean, he literally has mine. He's always there for his students, like I will be for you. That's kind of why I made this video series, right? I'm here to help you guys. I didn't just make this for myself. But obviously, when we come back to term 2, I probably won't have a lot of time. I've spent way too long making this video series, so I'll probably just be studying all of term 2. But maybe term 3 and 4, I'll have some more time to help you guys out, and we'll see how things go from there. Before I finish this episode off, I want to leave you with a quote from one of the final arcs from GTO's manga, where Onizuka's friend is talking to him, as Onizuka has kind of given up. And the quote goes something along the lines of this: "Full throttle, whenever, wherever, right to the end. That's your policy, right? Full speed forward, your kids riding in the rear, along that great road with no finish line." Now obviously in this case, the kids in this scenario are Onizuka's students, and the road, I believe personally, is life. Now you might be thinking, Josh, life has a finish line, right? And you're completely right in saying that. But what I think Toru Fujisawa, the author of GTO, is trying to say here is that don't put a finish line down in your life. Don't put one down because you might slow down. You might break early. The point is, we don't know where that finish line is, and we don't need to. If you go full on every day, full throttle right to the end, if you keep on going full on every day, living every day to its fullest, being in the moment, facing life with no regrets, facing your fears, and genuinely caring about the things in your life and being yourself, then you're not going to be scared that you slow down early. It's going full throttle every single day, constantly improving and caring about the things that you genuinely care about. That's what I think that's what I think it means to live life with no regrets, but also to go full throttle whenever, wherever along this great road with no finish line. Here, I want to thank GTO, man. It's given me so much in terms of courage and overcoming fear that there's so many things, not only this video series, I could not have done without GTO over this past year. And hopefully if you guys give it a try as well when you have time, that will be amazing as well. And you definitely won't regret it. And so I'll leave you with a singular line from the 1998 live-action GTO series, that intro song called Poison. The first line from that song, when translated into English, goes like this: "I want to believe in you, always, forever."